A billionaire survives a brutal car crash, but instead of calling for help, he shuts his eyes and pretends to be unconscious because he believes someone just tried to kill him. What he doesn't expect is to overhear a black single father standing beside his hospital bed, whispering a sentence that exposes a secret powerful enough to destroy his empire. This wasn't just an accident, it was a reckoning years in the making. If you think you know who the real victim is, think again, watch until the end, and don't forget to subscribe for more shocking true crime stories that reveal the truth behind power, betrayal, and justice. The crash that was random on a rain-slick highway just outside the city, billionaire tech mogul Victor Hale survives a violent car crash. The impact comes without warning. A violent sideways jolt, the scream of twisting metal, the sickening crack of glass collapsing inward. His black electric sedan spins once, twice, before slamming into the guardrail. For a moment, everything is silent except for the hiss of rain against the smoking hood. Witnesses will later say it looked like speed, like arrogance, like another rich man who thought he owned the road. But Victor knows better. His chest tightens as the airbags deflate around him. The scent of burnt rubber and deployed chemicals fills his lungs. He tastes blood, coppery and warm, where his teeth cut into his cheek. Somewhere in the distance, a car door slams. Someone shouts for help. He doesn't move. Not because he can't, because he is thinking. 3 days earlier, an anonymous email arrived in his private inbox, the one only board members and top executives knew. No subject line, just 6 words. You can't bury this forever. Attached were scanned documents from a redevelopment project his company finalized 2 years ago, a project that displaced families, a project he had signed off on personally. He had ordered legal to trace the sender. They found nothing. Rain streaks across the fractured windshield, blurring the flashing headlights gathering behind the wreck. Victor forces his breathing to slow. Inhale, exhale. He lets his head fall slightly to the side, eyes barely open beneath lowered lashes. Footsteps approach. "Sir, can you hear me?" A man's voice. Not panicked, controlled. Victor resists the instinct to respond, because the crash doesn't make sense. The pickup truck that hit him had come out of nowhere, not speeding, not swerving, just appearing. As if it had been waiting. The impact wasn't chaotic, it was precise. Driver's side rear quarter. A calculated angle. Victor has built a billion-dollar empire on recognizing patterns, and this feels like one. Sirens wail in the distance now, growing louder. Bystanders hover but keep their distance from the crumpled luxury car, whispering, "That's Victor Hale. The tech guy. Yeah, the billionaire." He hears a phone camera click. Good, he thinks. Witnesses. Another memory flickers. 2 weeks ago, during a closed-door board meeting, he rejected a proposal to quietly settle a pending lawsuit tied to the redevelopment project. "We did nothing illegal," he had said coldly. "We don't pay for optics." But the room had gone still after he spoke. Not supportive, not relieved. Still, the driver's side door jerks open with effort. Rain sprays across his suit, gloved hands reach in. "He's breathing," someone says. "Pulse is strong." Victor lets his body go slack. He has enemies, competitors who would love to see him vulnerable. Former partners cut out of lucrative deals. Activists who call him a corporate predator. And lately, shareholders growing impatient with his refusal to step back from public scrutiny. Power attracts resentment, and resentment when cornered becomes dangerous. "Sir, if you can hear me, squeeze my hand." He doesn't. Because if this was meant to kill him, whoever planned it will want confirmation. News alerts, headlines, chaos in the markets. If he wakes up too soon, he loses the advantage. Rainwater drips from his hairline into his ear as paramedics carefully extract him from the wreckage. Pain radiates through his shoulder, sharp but manageable. Not fatal, not even close. Which unsettles him more. They strap him onto a stretcher, secure his wrists lightly. Professional, efficient. Above him, the gray sky churns. As they lift him, he hears a voice nearby, lower this time, closer to the twisted pickup truck. "Male, steady, not frightened enough. This wasn't supposed to happen like this. Victor's pulse spikes, but his face remains slack. Another voice responds, urgent. Stop talking. The police are right there. The first voice exhales slowly. Through the blur of rain and flashing lights filtering past half-closed lashes, Victor memorizes the tone, the cadence. Calm under pressure, not random. The stretcher locks into place inside the ambulance. Doors slam shut, muting the storm to a dull roar. The siren ignites above him, vibrating through metal walls. Inside the confined space, paramedics speak freely. Lucky man, one mutters. Another inch and that hit would have killed him. Lucky. Victor keeps his eyes closed as the vehicle lurches forward. He is not lucky. He is being warned. And as the ambulance speeds toward the hospital, Victor Hale lies perfectly still, billionaire, target, strategist, and begins to listen. The man in the pickup truck, the ambulance doors, had barely closed on Victor Hale when the rain seemed to intensify, drumming harder against twisted metal and flashing lights. Just beyond the wreckage of the billionaire's sedan stood the driver of the pickup truck, soaked, unmoving, and very much awake. Marcus Reed kept one hand braced against the hood of his dented Ford, the other gripping his phone so tightly, his knuckles blanched pale against brown skin. His chest rose and fell in measured breaths, though his pulse thudded violently in his ears. He wasn't pacing. He wasn't shouting. He was watching. Police lights painted his face red, then blue, then red again. The rhythm made him look colder than he felt. An officer approached cautiously. "Sir, were you the driver of this vehicle?" Marcus nodded once. "Yes. Do you need medical attention?" "I'm fine." His voice was steady. Too steady for someone who had just collided with one of the most powerful men in the state. Inside the ambulance, as paramedics adjusted an oxygen mask near Victor's face, he strained to catch the muffled exchange outside. Every vibration of thunder against metal sharpened his awareness. He focused on the tones filtering through the partially open rear doors before they sealed him in. Outside, Marcus ran a hand over his shaved head, rainwater streaming down his temples. He looked at the ruined front of his truck, the bent grille, the shattered headlight, and then toward the ambulance where Victor lay hidden from view. "It looked like he swerved," Marcus said carefully when the officer began taking notes. "You're saying Mr. Hale veered into your lane?" "Yes, sir. I was driving straight, speed limit." "I didn't cross over. You understand this is a serious statement." Marcus's jaw flexed. "I understand." The officer studied him, no alcohol on his breath, no slurred words. Just a man holding himself together by discipline alone. Marcus had learned discipline the hard way. 8 years ago, he had stood in a hospital room much like the one Victor was being transported to now. Except that time, he wasn't listening for threats. He was listening to machines confirm that his wife's heart would not start again. Complications from an illness they couldn't afford to treat early enough. By the time insurance approved the specialist, it was too late. Since then, Marcus's world had narrowed into two things: survival and his daughter. He worked mornings driving deliveries, evenings handling maintenance at a community center scheduled for demolition next month. The same redevelopment project that had raised property values and erased entire blocks of affordable housing. The same project praised in business magazines as visionary. He knew the name Victor Hale long before tonight. Inside the ambulance, Victor felt the vehicle shift as paramedics finalized preparations. "Other driver?" one of them asked. "Standing by his truck," another replied. "Seems calm." Calm, Victor filed the word away. Outside, the officer continued. "Did you know who was driving the other vehicle?" Marcus hesitated just long enough to be noticeable. "I recognized the car. That wasn't my question." Another pause, shorter this time. "I know who he is. And that doesn't change what happened." Rain collected at Marcus's collar, sliding beneath his jacket. His phone buzzed in his hand, a photo notification. His daughter's bedtime reminder. A picture she'd sent earlier of her missing front tooth and proud smile. He swallowed hard. "I need to call my sitter," he said quietly. "You can in a moment." Marcus nodded again, eyes drifting toward the ambulance. His expression shifted then, not rage, not fear, something heavier, resolved. Under his breath, barely audible beneath the storm and sirens, he spoke toward the closed doors as if the man inside could hear him. "You picked the wrong man to silence." Inside, Victor's lungs froze mid-breath. The words slid under his skin like ice. For half a second, instinct nearly betrayed him, a tightening of fingers, a sharper inhale, but he forced his body slack again. Unmoving, unconscious. Silence him. Victor replayed the tone in his mind. Not triumphant, not unstable. Certain. The ambulance doors slammed fully shut then, sealing Victor away from the scene and from Marcus Reed's steady stare. The siren wailed as the vehicle lurched forward, carrying him towards sterile lights and controlled environments. But the sentence echoed louder than the siren. "You picked the wrong man." Victor lay still, pulse hammering beneath practiced stillness, and realized something far more dangerous than the crash itself. This driver hadn't looked surprised. He had looked prepared. Listening from the darkness, the ICU smelled of antiseptic and recycled air. A sterile stillness, broken only by the rhythmic beeping of machines. Victor Hale lay motionless beneath crisp white sheets, an oxygen line resting beneath his nose, a heart monitor mapping every controlled beat. He had chosen silence. Doctors moved around him with professional detachment. "CT scan shows no significant trauma," one said quietly. "Mild concussion at most. Neurological response, minimal." "He's not reacting." Victor slowed his breathing further, careful not to overdo it. He had studied crisis response before, not medically, but strategically. Stillness was power. Stillness made people talk, and they were talking. By morning, 2 corporate attorneys stood near the foot of his bed. Their voices were hushed, but not hushed enough. "If he regains consciousness quickly, this stays a traffic incident. And if he does," a pause, "then liability expands. Share prices react to uncertainty." Victor felt a familiar irritation spark beneath his ribs. Even now, they were calculating optics. A third voice entered, firm, unfamiliar. "Security has restricted access to immediate family and legal counsel only." That would be Alina's doing, he thought. Efficient as always. Footsteps approached his bedside. A nurse adjusted his IV. "Poor man," she murmured. "The other driver keeps asking about him." Victor filed that away instantly. The other driver. Later that afternoon, through layers of controlled silence, Victor pieced together fragments from conversations drifting across the room. Marcus Reed, 36 years old, no prior record. Stable employment history, widower. Claims Mr. Hale swerved first, a junior attorney said, almost dismissively. Of course he does, but there was tension beneath their sarcasm. Victor listened harder. He's retained counsel, someone added. Small firm, civil rights background. That was unexpected. Why would a delivery driver hire a civil rights attorney over a traffic collision? A faint shift in the air signaled more visitors entering. The private security team had doubled outside his room. Victor could hear the subtle crackle of radios, the measured footsteps pacing the hallway. He had built his empire on anticipating threats before they surfaced. Yet this one had slipped into his blind spot. Across town, in a cramped office above a bail bond storefront, Marcus Reed sat across from a woman in a navy blazer whose desk overflowed with folders. "Tell me everything," she said. Her name was Danielle Carter, no flashy firm, no towering downtown view. But her reputation carried weight in certain circles, the kind that challenged corporations instead of settling with them. Marcus leaned forward, forearms braced on his knees. "I didn't cross lanes," he said. "I know what I saw." Danielle studied him carefully. "This isn't just about a crash, is it?" A long pause. "No," Marcus admitted. And then, slowly, the past resurfaced. 2 years earlier, when Hale Technologies funded the East River redevelopment project. Marcus had attended every city meeting, he could manage between shifts. The project promised modernization, eco-friendly housing, commercial revitalization, economic growth. What it delivered were eviction notices. Marcus had discovered inconsistencies in the environmental impact report, numbers that didn't align, soil contamination data that vanished between drafts. He sent emails. He requested public records. He spoke at a hearing that lasted exactly 4 minutes before the microphone cut off. No one listened, until he received a warning message from an unknown number. Drop it. He hadn't. Back in the ICU, Victor heard a nurse enter again, whispering to a colleague. That man from the crash, Marcus Reed. He's been sitting in the waiting room for hours. Why? He says he needs to make sure Mr. Hale wakes up. Victor's pulse thudded louder against the monitor. Make sure he wakes up. Not make sure he survives. The distinction unsettled him. Fragments aligned slowly in the darkness behind his closed eyes. The redevelopment project, the anonymous email. The calculated angle of impact. The whispered words in the rain. You picked the wrong man to silence. Victor had assumed the crash was retaliation, corporate sabotage. A boardroom betrayal turned violent, but Marcus Reed didn't sound like a hired weapon. He sounded like someone who had been ignored too long. Footsteps approached again, this time lighter, slower. A presence lingered beside his bed. Victor recognized the breathing before the voice. Marcus. He must have convinced security he only wanted to see the man he'd collided with. For a moment, neither man moved. Victor kept his body slack, every nerve alert. Then, softly, almost to himself, Marcus spoke. I know you can hear me. Victor's lungs nearly betrayed him. Silence stretched. I tried to do this the right way, Marcus continued, voice low but steady. I filed complaints. I asked questions. Nobody listened. The heart monitor beeped in calm, obedient rhythm. You built your empire on numbers, Marcus whispered. But you never counted the people. Victor felt something unfamiliar edge into his carefully controlled mind. Not fear, recognition. As Marcus stepped back, footsteps approaching from the hallway signaled security returning. The door clicked shut again, sealing Victor once more inside the curated quiet of wealth and protection. But nothing felt controlled anymore. Because the truth was settling with undeniable clarity, the crash wasn't random, and neither was Marcus Reed.